everyone, to another episode of Down the Garden Path. Today, I'm welcoming back Bri Petersen from Urban Gardening Canada. Bri is a garden educator for growers in northern regions with shorter seasons. Welcome back to the show, Bri.
Thanks for having me.
I love that your garden advice is specifically focused on, sustainability, food security, and providing real gardening advice, not the outdated advice that I don't know what we're called, but garden influencers that are still being taught and that we're constantly trying to remind people, right? So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many people and even like content creators that are even my age that are on YouTube are still saying the same information that we've been taught for decades now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of this stuff is outdated. And so for me, one of the things I want to do is say like, hey, the climate's changing and this advice that we had 40 years ago is no longer relevant. So it becomes a really big part of what I'm trying to educate people with.
Yeah. And I actually have a really good friend who, this really hit when I was preparing for the show, who has, son moved out of the house and he was taking care of the garden. She's worried about her garden. She lives elsewhere. And she said, and she was asking me about hiring somebody to work on the garden. I'm like, well, what do you need done? And she goes, well, I need, every spring, you're supposed to turn the soil over and freshen it all up. And I'm like, no, you're not. Right? Like, why? And so I was it was like a light bulb went off and I'm like, why? Well, I don't know. I was always taught that. That's what you do in the spring. You turn it over. And I'm like, no, you don't. There's no reason to, right? You're disturbing the soil structure. You're disturbing the insects that are the things that are decomposing. And she's, well, what about cleaning up all the leaves and getting everything out of the garden? Why? So I think that's like, I feel like there is almost like a cleanliness thing, the whole put the garden to bed in the fall and in the front, it's all got to be clean. It's got to be spotless, but does it? Right?
It's kind of the same with your grass, right? Like it's expected to make your grass look like a carpet, but like you're outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key things for you to really share?
In terms of like what we're talking about, I feel like as you're saying that, I'm thinking about there's all these steps that are very outdated, like having to clean up your old branches or leftover dead plants from the springtime, turning over your soil and mowing your lawn, cleaning up the leaves. Like I feel like there's this like set playbook that everybody's expected to follow. Or even like I had read on Reddit recently, someone said, oh, I planted out all my plants and they died, but I was following the Farmer's Almanac's last plant out date. So how come all my plants died? And to me, that's like another perfect example where someone actually replied and said the Farmer's Almanac only says they have a 50% success rate on the plant out date or something like that. Maybe the percentage is wrong, 50, something like that. And that's like another perfect example for me where a lot of gardeners feel like there's like these hard rules that we have to follow, like clean up in the springtime, pull everything back, turn your soil, plant out on this date. And I feel that's really where we're getting things wrong, especially with the changing climate the way it is.
Yes.
But also there's no such thing as like a very specific date on when you should start gardening or plant anything out. And that's definitely something that I feel is that we need to change because the weather itself is actually far more important than a specific date.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's that one person in the neighborhood, right? And soon as people see that he's done it or she's done it, and then it's like, oh my gosh, now I'm behind because she's cleaned up, look at all her bags of leaves that are out. I'm behind. And really it's not, it's really one, the weather, and two, your space, your garden. Her garden could be different, right? Her sun exposure, her microclimate that she might have under shady trees or in full sun, right? With no trees. So it really is shockingly a personalized, timing, and that's like, how can the Farmer's Almanac, I don't know that very well, that publication very well, but do they even go by zones,
Yeah, I think that they do. I like some of their stuff because they give you an example of like your whole country and they'll be like, you're going to be cooler and wetter than usual, or you're going to be drier and hotter. I do kind of like the spring outlook that they have of it, but it's always that last frost date number that people think is, or here we have Victoria Day weekend. We're like, oh, plant out on the May long weekend, no matter what, that's when. But I'm like, I'm from Northern Ontario and everyone says May long weekend. Then I moved to Toronto, everyone says May long weekend. Then I moved to Ottawa and it's still May long weekend. And I'm like, but that's a zone 5, a zone 6B, and then a 5B. Like, how can we all have the same plant out date
Yeah.
if we're all in
Yeah.
different growing zones? And that's just one of those things that's essentially an old wives' tale that you believe in, but that means nothing when someone like me in Ottawa needs to actually plant essentially in June.
Yeah. And the May long weekend moves, right? So sometimes
too.
it's early and sometimes it's not even a fixed date. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Oh, and June, eh? In Ottawa?
Yeah, I now that I've been here for 3 years, I'm finally giving up the whole like GTA planting plan that I used to do for so
Right.
long. I'm so used to being, which you guys, I think your zones have gotten one zone warmer and
Yes.
Ottawa stayed the same, which means that you
Really?
guys
Okay.
are, yeah. So now what went from being like maybe a zone 5A and zone 5B difference is an entire number change for us. So we're still a lot colder. So now I'm finally like, okay, the plan is June 1st. We're not going to do the May long weekend.
Okay. Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
So you're 5B and are we 6 now? That-
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I
I'm
think
pretty
so
sure I'm
too.
still a 5B, but I saw that Guelph moved into the 6s, and that used to be
Okay.
like right along Lake Ontario. I think
Yeah.
Burlington was like a 6B, so maybe they've even changed to a 7, but Guelph has changed from a 5 to a 6. So I'm like, no, we're left behind.
Well, in a way, I don't know. It means you're warming slower than the rest of us.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
yeah,
Could be a good
maybe.
thing in end.
Yeah.
So, in your business and in your communication online and your YouTube videos and things, what zones do you focus on? Do you just the 5B for Ottawa, or do you focus kind of because your experience in living in Northern Ontario?
Yeah, so the grand scheme of things in the future of urban gardening Canada would be to have people who represent zones all across Canada. That would be really great, that I could have creators who join me and they can represent zone 2 or zone 3s. But right now, for me, because I only have experience, like proper experience in zone 5 and zone 6, it's really anything zone 5 and warmer.
Okay, okay, that's good. But we can often give advice though, because we know what's happening in those zones. So, I try to
Yeah,
do the best I can for myself in that situation too, right?
yeah,
It's tricky.
yeah,
And not only does the area, like the location matter, but it's this because of the changing climate, it is the season. So no 2 Mays are the same, no 2 Junes are the same, right? Look at this, we had so much snow. Ontario, like this was a lot of snow. And so it's still drying up, and that's unusual from the last many years.
yeah.
How
My
was Ottawa
parents,
this year with snow cover?
we got tons,
You
like
got tons.
probably
Okay.
near record, like we had a few years ago. And my parents
Okay.
still live in Northern Ontario, and they got snow up until like 2 weeks ago. Like they still
Yeah.
had like feet of snow. So
Yeah.
it's a really late year for them too. And I'm thankful I don't live in a zone 3.
We're all thankful that we don't live in a zone 3, are we? Oh, goodness
Yeah.
gracious. Now, what your ebook? So one of your big projects has been your ebook. Can you tell us a little bit about that for our beginner gardeners?
Yeah, so for the last few months, I've been working on an ebook. It has 13 chapters in it, and it's geared specifically towards beginner gardeners. But what I feel like sets my book apart from your average beginner gardener book, which I've read many of them through my years of learning how to garden, is that it just has some extra information in it that is new based off of our changing climate, but also just focuses on that more sustainability aspect of things. So one of the things that I've added into my book that maybe you don't see in a lot of beginner gardener books is actually about insects and pests. So a lot of the beginner gardener books that I've read have focused on like a specific type of vegetable, like how to grow this or how to grow that or how to set up your garden, which I include in my book, but you're going to bump into these bugs when you're starting to garden, and here's a picture of what they look like, and here's how they have a life cycle, and also how you can manage them that doesn't revert to chemicals, but also just like freaking out over the fact that you have this infestation that you had no idea was going to come with your plants.
Okay, well, that's good. And it's primarily vegetables, right? in your book?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Okay.
my book covers a lot of stuff like your basics, like what's an annual, what's a perennial, what's a herbaceous or semi-herbaceous plant. So you get a lot of that core basics, but then it also talks about how to grow in containers, how to grow in raised beds or in the ground, how to fertilize properly, water. So it really covers the basics that you could apply to annual flowers if you wanted to, but for the most part, it's pretty vegetable
It's
focused.
vegetable, which I think is a really hot topic right now, because never before, even in my landscape design business, have people been interested in having a vegetable garden. I think probably about 20 years ago when I started, I found there were some, new couples that bought a new house from, let's say, an older couple or whatever, and there was an existing empty vegetable bed, or there were existing fruit trees, and they've called me to remove them and put something
Oh,
else there, right? 20 years ago when I started this, take out the fruit trees. Oh, we don't want fruit trees. What else can we replace them with? And what else can we do with this vegetable garden? And now it's kind of gone full circle. And now they're calling me in to put in fruit trees and to put in vegetable gardens, and or where can they put container? I think vegetable container gardening is also huge, and I do that myself, just because of the way the backyard is, and the house we bought has a pool and a lot of very, very, very little garden space in the backyard. So I've managed to figure out some things about growing but but again, every season is different. So it's never, I think people might have given up. Don't give up, right? Because it's not you, it's the weather.
yeah. And that's kind of what I think about too. Like a lot of beginner gardening teachings just tell you about, like, here's your first frost date and here's your last frost date or whatever. Here's your last frost
Yeah.
date and here's your first frost date. And greenhouses will sell any type of plant, whether it's the right time to sell it or not,
Yeah.
whether it grows in our climate or not. Like there's so many pitfalls for beginner gardeners that they're just unaware of.
Yeah.
Like you can early June still be buying really sad looking broccoli or cauliflower seedlings at a greenhouse, but by June you really shouldn't be planting cold hardy crops because they're going to hate the 40-degree weather that we're about to get. So I just feel like there's so many pitfalls that lie for everybody because there's just, a lot of these corporations want to make money and they'll sell whatever they can. And even if it makes sense or not. And so this is some of the information that I try and teach in my book is it might feel confusing at first as a beginner that there's cold hardy and heat loving plants, but whether you use that as information to plant at two separate times or you use that as information to say, I'm already past this date, I should avoid buying, a broccoli or a cauliflower plant and wasting my money on it. Like however you want to use it, it's just really good information to know.
Excellent. Okay. So for early May, what is too late now? Like, is it like broccoli? Are we too late for broccoli now? Okay, if there's a difference being so sorry, I'm not, two questions. Is it seeds, or even if you bought the plant? Sorry, let me. Let's say too late now?
Yeah, see, and that's the other thing that always upsets me for both spring and fall planting is that the greenhouses could technically be open selling these cold hardy crops to us in like late April or early May. You can be getting those in the ground like onions, kale, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, all of those. And so I wouldn't be starting some of them from seed right now, like specifically the cauliflower and broccoli. I wouldn't start from seed right now. It's too late. But if you have the seedlings, you can go for it. And I'm this year going to try and do it in a shadier garden of mine. So that way it gets some daytime sunlight, but also gets that daytime shade. So it doesn't bolt from the heat. Because the problem, especially with us and the way that the climate is changing, is that in the springtime you can go from 2-degree daytime highs to 40-degree daytime highs out of nowhere, and then all of your plants bolt and you've wasted weeks or months of growing these plants. And in the fall, the problem is you can go from having 40-degree days to all of a sudden a hard frost out of nowhere. And so it's getting a lot more complicated to plant these like edge season crops. And so honestly, I don't know if for where you are, but we've had pretty warm weather now for probably about 3 weeks straight with an odd, really cold night. And I was out of town last week, unfortunately, but if I was in town, all of my cold hardy crops would have been hardened off and in the garden by now, because just getting them out sometime in April just gives them that little bit of extra chance in order to grow into May and early June. provide you food before the heat comes in and you end up with these heat waves.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, in here in the GTA, it has been cool. So today is a nicer, yesterday and today are a bit nicer, aside from like Good Friday a few weeks ago. That was another really warm day, but then we really got to leaning like winter coats again, like light coats. So, so it has been tricky, to figure that out. Do you think it's a good idea for new gardeners? So this is reaching out to like the new gardeners to, I know this sounds mean, but to even start with seeds, like, I know it, the baby little seedlings that you get kind of already going from a garden center. And a note on that is to let listeners know that if your garden center doesn't provide you those things early, you can request them. Because if they know that there is demand, I did work at a garden center, it's really based on, a lot of it is based on customer demand. And if the growers are growing them, then they can absolutely get them in. And sometimes you'll see them in the grocery store, but they won't be at the garden center, which is weird, right? So you can go in and ask, early in the season, in the winter even, ask to speak to a manager and just say, I really want to see these seedlings, these cold crops in, and give that a shot. Because I think the garden centers want to, they don't want to bring them in if nobody's going to buy them. Like it's a catch-22, right? So that's just a little aside. But what do you think? Like, do you think it would be more confidence boosting if they did start off with, little baby plants from a garden center?
Yeah, so I kind of like, it's not a hard and fast rule, but I feel like the bigger the seed, the easier it is to start. So like bush beans are really easy to start from seed, sunflowers, zucchini, cucumbers, like these, like for whatever reason, the bigger the seed, I find it's an easier beginner friendly plant to start from seed, or the ones that you can direct sow outside, like bush beans, for example. Or peas are really easy to start from seed, but any of the like heat loving ones are just better to buy as seedlings. I think that as a beginner, either you can buy everything from seedling to make it easier, or there's just like those really high value ones that I would buy. So like your tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, and then all the big ones like zucchinis and cucumbers, I would just start those ones from seed if you really wanted to get into the practice of learning to grow from seed. Okay,
that's good to know. Well, the trick there too is that because they're new, we don't know how big those seeds are, right? Until we open those packages. And some of those, like I have not grown. I've tried many things and tested, and I have a little click and grow that I've got basil and growing in the house and stuff. But some things I either shied away from or my family doesn't eat, that type of thing. And again, I mostly do containers. So I've kind of, gone through what works and what doesn't work there. But I've never tried, peas or bush beans in a container.
You should try it.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah. So is it still time I could still do bush beans?
Bush beans, you don't want to plant out until after your last frost date.
Okay.
So you got lots of time for those. And peas, it's like a perfect time right now.
Perfect time. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Yeah. So that's good that there's still time for people to do that. What else is your favorite thing to talk about for people to try growing for new beginner gardeners?
So just if anyone wants to know, I do post a video every single month on YouTube of what seeds you can be sowing. So in the winter time, I'll tell you what to start inside. So if you want to try your hand at indoor ones, then you can watch those ones. But starting in May, I do ones that are what you can direct sow outside. So from May through September, all of those videos are exactly what you can just plant outside. So these ones are better for anybody who's a newer gardener and doesn't have like the $1,000 setup to start growing your own indoor seedlings. And I also talk about which ones can be transplanted out too. So if you buy your seedlings from the greenhouse, you'll get a better idea that it's, I'm okay now to start planting all of these outside. So that really helps anyone as a beginner gardener. It gives you that prompt on what you can do.
Yeah. And you said you do that every week?
Every month.
Every month. Okay. Yeah. So you do, so this is what you can do in May, and this is what you can do in June.
It's the closest Friday to the beginning of the month. So sometimes it'll be like the 29th of a month, if that's the closest Friday, or sometimes it'll be like the 5th of the month. Whatever that closest Friday to the start of the month is when I post the video, yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's very helpful. So yeah, I'm going to have to tune in and see that. So, and of course we will have all of Bri's contact information in our show notes and stuff so that you can you can find her and learn all what's going on with Urban Gardening Canada. So that is great. What is so for the beginning of May, so you did say bush beans, so that was my question I wrote down about what can we grow start now at the beginning of May. So that would be early because you said bush beans should wait until after the May long weekend. So what, the first week of May, what is something that we could maybe direct sow?
There's lots actually.
So, is there lots? Oh,
yeah.
That's great. Okay. Let me
So
hear them.
I personally just planted peas. I grow broad beans, which is a very like heavy UK thing to grow, but we don't really grow them a lot in Canada, but they're fava beans or broad beans. So I planted those. You can plant nasturtiums, whether you like to grow them as like a trap crop or you can eat them. You can plant radishes. I did a ton of carrots. I did sweet peas, the flower sweet peas. I direct sowed those. A lot of people start them inside, but I just direct sowed mine. Like any of those, like beets you can do spinach and lettuce, you can do all of those right now. Swiss chard, kale, you can direct sow all of those if you want.
Hey, now will some of those be done and then you can put in that same spot, then you can put your tomatoes in? Like does timing work that way if you're short for space?
Yeah, some of them. So like carrots take forever to grow.
Right. Yeah.
So carrots, no. The lettuce you can get in and out pretty quick. It's usually 30 days to harvest. Right. Radishes are usually 30 days to harvest. I think turnips can be 30 days. So there's some of them that are really short. Peas take a long time. Broad beans are kind of like that mid-range one where like eggplant would be no one grows eggplant even though I love it.
No one grows egg because no one knows how to eat. Like aside from eggplant and Parmesan, what do we do with eggplant? Like really?
Oh, I'll eat them with anything. I love eggplant roasted with just salt and oil. I've not pickled them, but like you squeeze out all the liquid and then refill it with like a vinegar oil that stays forever in your fridge. And it's like a tapenade, I guess, type of thing.
Okay.
Oh, I'll eat it with anything.
Really?
Baba ganoush?
Yes, of course, Bob. So yes, okay. So eggplant Parmesan and baba ganoush.
But those ones are like beyond heat loving. Like when your tomatoes and peppers can go out, your eggplants shouldn't go out yet. Like they really want that heat. So like you could probably switch out your broad beans for eggplants.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so we could put lettuce out now? Like you could direct sow lettuce or should we? Yes. Oh, really?
If you have seedlings, you can transplant it. And then just on the like below 0 nights, just cover them. Like I use a hoop house, which not everybody has access to, but stick some sticks into your containers or your beds and just throw like a duvet cover or a bed sheet over it. And it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yes, go to Value Village and pick up a couple, old bed sheets and stuff, right? It doesn't have to be fancy. Don't you think that sometimes people, especially new gardeners, think when you look at the magazines or you look at Instagram and you see we don't have magazines anymore. I'm dating myself, but you think you need all of that, right? You need the big hoops and you need the fancy stakes and you need the fancy trays and you really don't. Right?
Gardening is like a weird juxtaposition where the social media tells you have to have everything fancy, like your metal raised beds and the this and the that. Yeah. And then you talk to other gardeners and they're like, I use garbage from around my property to build what I need. And I'm like the garbage side of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I found a stick. I'm going to use that. Like,
I just did that. I have an olive tree that's like leaning and I'm like in my kitchen eating my lunch going, okay, I really need to stake that olive tree, right? So I literally go into but it's compost like the brown bag day, right? So I go into I'm like, oh, I didn't feel like going to the curb. And I'm like, oh, but the brown bag was gone anyway. And I'm like, okay, so I'm looking in my garage for a stick. And so I found a stick and I bring it in and it was too short. But I'm like, okay, see, like that's all you need, right? You don't need the fancy stake. It doesn't need to be bamboo. It doesn't need to be, rebar, those green coated rebars. You can use what you have.
Yeah. And I have a free ebook on my website. And then I think I've done one video on YouTube too, but because of like my pillar of food security, I do a lot of stuff on how to garden for free. So I have an ebook that lists a ton of stuff. And then the video goes through some of the stuff that's on the ebook, which is like how to get soil for free, how to get mulch for free, how to get containers for free, how to get seeds for free. Because technically you can get everything related to your garden for free, including water if you have a rain barrel or a bucket that you can even catch water in. So there's there's the side of it where you can have every last fancy product that you've seen on the internet, which I have in my garden, but I use that as a way to review products. So that way people can know if it's worth their money or not, because I'll spend the money and test it for you.
Yeah.
And then I have the other side of it where it's like, ask your neighbor for a pot. They probably have 400 of them, and then fill it up and use water from the sky, and you got a garden.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think by the very nature of gardeners, they are very everybody wants to share, everybody wants to help, everybody wants to swap. Your local garden club, is another resource. We just our meeting last week, we had a plant swap and a garden tool swap. Which is becoming more and more, because you don't need to buy new tools. Like you said, your neighbor next door probably has extra. Your mom has extra. Your best friend has extra. We always are, able to do that. So I think that's something or whether you're looking at places like Facebook Marketplace or something like that, even for plants, swapping. Plant sales from local community groups, including garden clubs, but other school groups and things like that are good at doing plant swaps too. So it doesn't have to be a big expense, especially when it comes to growing food.
100%. And then how many of us buy a seed package of cauliflower and they give you 100 seeds, and I'm like, when am I going to grow 100 cauliflower? Either I can give you the seeds, or I'm probably going to overseed, because you never know germination rate. So I'm probably going to have something left over for you.
Yeah, definitely. That would be cool. Do you think people do that? Like they overgrow? Do you do that? Like give away some of your seedlings because you've grown too much? I've never looked at that.
Well, I've seen it in my Buy Nothing group on Facebook for our neighborhood. Okay. Tons of people are giving away free vegetable plants.
Yeah.
So, and I'm giving, I don't give away a lot, because for me, this is my first or second year with my allotment. So I really don't know how many plants I need. So it's going to be more of at the end of May, I might have plants to give away, but right now I'm very nervous. I just don't have enough, but it happens a lot. And in my Buy Nothing group, I've seen it a lot.
And I know from watching your videos that you built some raised gardens you built the raised gardens in your yard, right? Or is it at the allotment?
Both. But the allotment one hasn't come out yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I saw your backyard one.
But yeah, we're building them at the allotment too, because the weeds are just so bad there. We can't keep, they're like compacted soil. We pulled up some weeds because we were just there last night, and the weeds were the roots are this thick. I've never seen roots this thick ever in my life. So we've been collecting. This is another example that we've been in our Facebook group just being like, hey, we need free wood. Is anybody getting a new fence or a new deck? And we drive around the neighborhood and we just collect wood. So our fence and all of our raised beds at the allotment are all made for free.
Well, that's good. Now are you concerned about the pressure treated wood or no? No.
I've done a lot of research about it, and again, everybody should do their own research, but they've changed the way that they treat wood since maybe 30 years ago now. So it's not the same chemicals. So I'm not at all worried about that. But a lot, of course, railway ties are a big, giant
no, absolutely. Yes. No.
A huge no. But other than that, a lot of the wood that we're using too is probably 20 years old. So if there was any leaching happening, we're already ready to replace the boards in a year or two if we have to, but I'm not too worried about that.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, and you can often, that's one good use of fabric. There's very little good uses of landscape fabric, but that would be one where if you are concerned at all, you could line it with landscape fabric, but that's good to know. And especially if you're handy and your husband's handy, that's great that you can build your own. And it goes back to all the fancy things. There are, if you don't have someone handy and you do have a little bit of a budget, then they've come a long way with the containers that you can purchase for raised gardens. For small spaces, I have, or where people don't have a lot of ground to put a garden, but yet they have a patio where they can put raised, already something pre-made, and you can get a ton of vegetables, a ton of things in those containers, right?
Especially too, if you employ the square foot gardening method, which is what I do. That is high intensity planting, which does mean you have to replace your soil a lot more often, top it up and build it because of how high intense it is on the nutrition of your soil. But for me here, I only have it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but maybe like 200 square feet of garden space. Like it's not acreage. It's not
Right.
a lot. I've got maybe like 6 gardens and some of them are only 2 feet by 4 feet in size. They're not huge. And I can produce a ton of food from here because I plant so tight together.
Okay. And you know what? I've been doing this show for 12 years, and I do not think I've ever done a show about square foot gardening.
Oh, I love
It's,
it.
I know. Can you give us like a brief summary? And we might have to do a deeper dive at another date, but can you give us a brief, just explanation to our listeners?
Yeah, so it was created, I think his name is Mel Bartholomew, I think was the man who created. If I'm wrong, just...
Yeah,
but
we'll make sure we have it in the show notes correct.
Yeah. So he's the one who created it. And the whole theory was how many plants that you can plant in a square foot. So a 12 inch by 12 inch space. So if you're planting it, the best thing that you can do is either put little markers in your garden every 12 inches to create a grid. Or for us with our wood raised beds is we staple like sisal rope into a grid shape. So that way you get those perfect 12 inch squares.
Okay.
And then you plant according to how many plants can live inside of that square foot. So, for example, bush beans, I think, is like 9 plants that you can put in a square foot. It's a lot. Onions are 16 per square foot. And then you have things like peppers, eggplants, and then they say tomatoes is 1 square foot, but tomatoes can get out of hand. You kind of want to like use a little bit of your knowledge of growing mixed with that, but it's really high intensities. In a 2 foot by 4 foot bed, you have 8 square feet, and physically it's a really small garden, but you can put in 8 pepper plants if you wanted to in there, which is a significant amount of peppers for a small garden. Mm-hmm. Or you can put in, like, I think mature lettuce is 6 per square foot, so that's like 56 plants or somewhere around there, give or take.
Really?
Like,
so you can put you can put 9 pepper plants in a square foot?
No, 1 pepper plant. You
1 pepper plant. Okay.
9 bush beans. I'm pretty sure I think bush beans is at the 9 mark or 6 to 9, but like that's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's really high intensity planting, and then there's a promotion of intercropping. So it's not like you would do, only peppers. Like you would do 4 peppers into 4 of the square feet, and then with the other 4 square feet, you're going to put in bush beans and then lettuce. So that way you get that intercropping, which is beneficial, but also you can plant like a boatload of food. So he has an actual physical book that you can probably find at your secondhand store because it's been around for so long. And he has actual pictures of like a 4x4 garden and exactly how to plant it, where you're using like vertical growing space for runner beans, your lettuce in the front, and it shows you just how much you can put into a fairly small garden.
Excellent. That is very good advice. And especially with now so many more people want to do the raised beds and containers, or even if you have pots, that's one, treat that as a square foot, really, right? They don't have to be massive. And I think I'm guilty of that, thinking I need a really, really big pot and then I can barely move it, and because it's full of soil and stuff. But really, it doesn't need to be that big. You can grow a lot in a smaller pot because that would be less, a little bit more than a square foot usually.
Yeah. The only thing you just have to be mindful of is that your water usage is going to be higher because there's just that many more plants in there. And then the nutrition is going to get used up a lot faster. So either creating some kind of natural fertilizer during the summertime, like a mid-season feeding, or else making sure that you really top up your soil or fix your soil in those pots or even in a raised bed. I've had my nutrition in my last house ran out really fast because of my high intensity planting. So building nutritious soil is really important when you're square foot.
Okay, that's a good point. And what is the best way to keep your soil nutritious?
I'm actually just writing a newsletter about this.
Ooh. Well, yeah, I'm sure your newsletter may go out before this show, so you can.
Yes, it probably will.
Okay.
But really, so we kind of talked about this in the beginning, where you were saying that tilling is no longer something that you should be doing anymore. But there is the benefit of adding in new soil on the top, a few inches of new soil, and just working it into the first inch or two. Tilling is a lot more invasive, where it really digs down like sometimes a foot or 2 into your soil, but we're talking the first like 2 to 3 inches that you're just going to work in new soil into there, because your seedlings really are accessing that top of your soil in the beginning. And I just caution from using too much manure, There's some gardeners who think that the only thing that they ever need to add is manure into their soil, but you can end up with nitrogen burn on your plants. And what you think is going to make you an incredible garden ends up being the dead opposite of it, because you just have way too much nitrogen in your soil. So choosing more of like a balanced triple mix or a high quality triple mix. There's a lot of mushroom compost that exists now, but I've never used that before, so I'm not quite sure on the NPK of that one. But your triple mix is the easiest for a beginner, and then you're just going to get some new soil and work that into the top couple inches of your garden. And then mulch is the other one, is just adding mulch into your garden. For annual vegetables, your best options are straw or dried up grass clippings. Those are two really good ones that you can add. And the grass clippings is free if you have a lawn, or if your neighbor has a lawn, or
And the key is that dried up, right?
Yes. Yeah, because if it's wet and fresh, then it's going to start molding and it's going to promote more fungi than anything else. You're going to want to mow your lawn and then leave it for, 4 or 5 days and let it dry up, and then you can apply it. And then not only does it keep in the moisture and keeps your soil cool, which is really good for the microbes and the living soil that you have, but then it's going to break down and it's going to feed your soil for later.
And what about bags? So you said bag triple mix. What about bag compost? I know not manure, so there's a difference between manure and compost. How do you feel about that versus, I know not everybody has a composter to do it themselves.
Yeah, compost is another really great one. And the interesting thing about compost is it's both a soil amendment and it's a mulch. So interestingly enough, compost plays multiple roles. So adding in compost is a really great option.
Okay. And mulches, even for people's flower gardens, I advise to stay away from the dyed mulches. And so I would think that would also be something to stay away from the vegetable garden, right? No, it doesn't need to be dyed black or red or anything like that.
Yeah. And I read a book by Jeff Lowenfels. I'm not sure if you've ever read, he's got the trilogy. It's like teaming up with nutrients, teaming up with microbes. Have you read his trilogy?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. It's not a beginner gardener's book series, but if you're into gardening, his teaming up with nutrients is all about like the macro and micronutrients of your soil. So it really dives into it. But he says that not to use wood mulch on annual gardens, because wood mulch feeds the fungi, and the fungi is better for your perennial gardens than it is for your annual. So yeah, so that one is why I say do straw or grass clippings for your annual garden, because it's providing the right nutrients for annual vegetables, versus a lot of times we use wood mulch on perennial gardens, and that's actually more beneficial for the nutrition of a perennial.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, you'll have to text me that his name again, and I will look that up. So that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, this has been so informative, and I hope it has inspired our listeners to know that they're not behind, that it's the beginning of May, and there's still lots of time to grow food. I do encourage everyone to go look for that Square Foot Gardening book, because you will find it I'm going to do the same. I think I owned it at one point, and then it kind of faded away. And then so I might have to go buy my own old book back, Square Foot Gardening. And we'll have a link. I'll mention that in the show notes as well. But thank you, Bri. I mean, and again, we'll have all I'm looking forward to your newsletter that's going to come out about that, as well as your videos, which are so informative. Everybody you just do a great job of explaining. And I think as the passionate people are really wanting to grow their own food, but it can be very intimidating. And one, dead plant doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just finding the right thing for you to grow. And there's lots of ways to be creative in the garden. Like we started when we did cucumbers on our fence, because the garden is like a foot from the fence. We put chains on the fence, and the cucumbers grew up. So there's always a way, right, to grow food and to and learn from others on the best way to do it. And Bri is a perfect person to learn from. So thank you very much for joining me here today and talking vegetable gardening on Down the Garden Path.
Thanks. Quickly,
sure.
Cucumbers is a funny one because they're divas. So for anybody who thinks they're easy to grow, they aren't always.
Yes.
For you to talk about your cucumbers is a funny one, just because they seem like something that might be easy for people to grow. And I've had a house before where they never grew in the backyard and only grew in the front yard. So like as a beginner, you have to be very flexible to be like, not say, oh, this died, therefore I can't grow it. But hey, maybe this isn't the right spot and I should just try somewhere else for it. And and know that for every good gardener, we've killed thousands of plants.
Oh, thousands. Yeah. 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 We had one, maybe 2 really good years of cucumbers, and then we just couldn't get it to go again.
They're
So you're
really
right. I
hard to
mean,
grow.
yeah, they can be very hard to grow. And a lot of it it's not the cucumber. It's not us. It's the weather, like the season. For whatever reason, we never know. Peppers can be another way, right? If we don't have a really hot summer, if it's a coolish summer with just a few hot days, your pepper plants aren't going to do much, right? Like they do need the heat.
Yep. There's every year, no matter how far you've been gardening, there's always going to be a failure. Like it's just a guarantee that I could grow beans 8 years in a row and be like drowning in beans, and then the 9th year I just fail at them, and it doesn't mean anything to do with me. It's just you're. I always say the same thing. You're working with something that's alive, which means you can't control it. It's its own living entity, and you can help create the environment it likes, but it is living, and so you can't control everything that's going on around you.
That's right. So everyone, it's the environment. It's the growing situation. It's not you. So I hope that gives everybody hope as my cell phone goes off in the background. I don't know if you can hear it. Always a good time for a spam call, and I did turn off my phone. But anyway, so thank you everybody for listening. Is there any last tidbit aside? That was a very good tidbit that, but anything else you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, so just that kind of tidbit is what you find in my ebook. It's slightly motivational, but filled with all of this type of foundational work. So it's just all about understanding that it's not always you and that things are going to die, but also being curious and learning new things is exactly what makes you a better gardener. That if you fail at something one year, then just research it and try and make changes for the next year. Or if you have a weird bug infestation one year, don't panic, learn about the bug. And by next year, you're never going to have that problem again. And so that's literally what it is. It's building that foundational information and then taking that and building on that every single year. And all of a sudden, you're just going to be a really good gardener. And you went from maybe feeling like you had a black thumb to everybody being surprised at how amazing you are at gardening. And it really doesn't take that long, but it's just about building that curiosity.
Wonderful, wonderful. Where can we find your ebook?
So it's on my website. If you go to urbangardeningcanada.com, there on the menu is shop, and you just go to shop our products and you'll be able to find it.
Excellent. And will you come back and chat about insects? Because I think they need a whole show of their own.
I love insects. I will. And I love to keep them alive if they deserve it, because it's supposed to be only like 3% of 3% of insects are pests, and we're killing way more than 3% of the insects that are out there. So I am happy to talk about any type of insect, pest, beneficial, neutral. I'm here for all of them.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's do that, because I think that it would be very helpful, because I think people are also really scared when they see bugs on all kinds of plants, even their ornamental plants. And knowing the difference about what's beneficial and what isn't is a really important thing. So
totally.
Yeah, so great. I'm looking forward to that. So thank you once again, everybody, for listening and joining both of us down the garden path.